Hey, what's up everyone? Welcome back. I know it's been what feels like years since my last video. It's been a crazy last year. 2020 was not the most fun time to be a creative in the lighting and entertainment industry, but everyone's getting through it in different ways. But it has been quite a year of pivots and quite a year of shifts. And with that, I feel like it's worth bringing to you the newest and most exciting update and announcement I've had in quite some time related to GeoPix. My plan is to, instead of release it as a paid product, is going to actually be released as an open source project that will be free to use forever for everyone. So 2.0, a month from now on April 8th, will be released on GitHub, and it will be primarily hosted there. There'll be a website and stuff like that still, but it's going to just be easier to host things there and a lot more visibility and access and so on and so forth. And yeah, I'm really excited about that. That's going to be obviously a huge shift for me in terms of how I'm operating and thinking about GeoPix, and I hope that it does a couple things. But first, let me kind of just outline a couple of the main motivations for why I'm doing this. So I mentioned 2020, and while it's been a factor and kind of a catalyst in terms of thinking about all this stuff, this has been a thought mulling around in the back of my head for quite some time, and that is what do I really want to be spending my time doing? So issue number one with GeoPix so far has been that running a business, all of this other stuff that I felt like was necessary just to sell it as a product, the LLC, the business, the website, the web development, the licensing, the support, the marketing, all of those things, right? Not only consume a huge amount of money and resources, but they also just consume a lot of time and energy. And time and energy put into that is not time and energy put into GeoPix itself and other things in life. So, the natural evolution of this is people either figure out a way to lighten their load, or you gotta do that, or you burn out, right? And I don't want to burn out. I don't want to keep slogging away at 12 plus hour days doing all these different things and wearing all these different hats. And so ultimately, going open source was a way to cut a huge amount of these responsibilities, and that's also why I'm really moving towards GitHub as a platform, because again, the hosting, the mechanics, the issues, the wiki, the markup language that you can use for the wiki, all these things are just so much simpler, and they're already there, and they're highly visible and accessible to people, which is great. So that's kind of motivator number one, the primary one. But the secondary motivator, is kind of the realization, especially I think this relates to our industry in the lighting world, is that software does not get adopted super quickly. And this, I don't think this is necessarily a criticism. It's just a fact of the way it works. I heard different opinions on why that is. One thought I have on it is that when you're putting on a huge event in an arena, or you're putting on a concert at a festival, there's oftentimes a lot of money associated with that, and people don't want to take risks, right? You go with a tried and true method. That might be a lighting console, Grand and May. It might be tried and true video software like Resolume, or anything like that. End of the day, though, for adoption to really happen, it needs to be kind of adopted by, I think, the more flexible and experimental crowd of creators, right? People who are maybe newer to the industry, or people who aren't, but who have the desire to try new things and try different ways of working, new workflows. And those are the people, I think, who usually spearhead things and get it moving. And make something really cool. People notice it, and they're like, what did you use to make that? Well, check it out. It's this new software called GeoPix. And while there's been some adoption, some really exciting projects done, which I'll be detailing all that on the new website once that's live, it hasn't really seen a lot of user community built, right? A lot of the adoption has been through people or companies that have contacted me directly asking for assistance when needed, but it's all been kind of back channel communication. And I want to push things out into the open as much as possible and really get things moving. And so open sourcing a project is obviously one of those ways to get a lot of traction a lot more quickly, and just get eyes and ears on a new project. So those are the two main motivations I have for getting this thing out to you as a free project to use. Obviously, the monetary side of things changes quite dramatically. It goes from selling licenses to a gated software to essentially giving it out for free. And for me, I want to open things up to kind of a subscription or donation-based model. And at its core, its simplest form, you essentially, and it's going to be through Patreon and GitHub, by the way, and I'll show you those two here in just a moment. But essentially, you can donate a few bucks a month. That helps development. If enough people do that, it makes a big difference. And there's also some perks, right? So if you do need support, direct line of communication, Discord chat, etc., those things come at like higher perk levels. And then also for the people who have a significant amount of money that they're willing to, contribute, there's like other avenues for sponsorship and things like that too. So anyways, what I'm saying is there's lots of different ways that free projects work, and it's something I've been researching a lot, and it's something I'm gonna give a try, give it a go, and see how it happens and see how it works. But ultimately, it's up to the community. If they find value in this and they want to support it, then that's what's going to make it move to the next phase and continue moving at the pace that it has in the past. So with that said, let me show you a bit of what's going on in the social media world and the website world. So over here on the website, geopix.io, I know my feed is covering up part of this, but you're not missing anything. This is basically just a new placeholder site. It's just a placeholder until the website gets done, the new one, which again, right, it's going to be super simple, a lot less complicated than before. There's no user account access, which is a headache in terms of web development. It's going to be display only and no account stuff, really just wiki, links to various places, portfolio stuff, showing off work that people have done, and things like of that nature. So this is just a placeholder for now. There'll be more on this later. The GitHub, this is currently a private repo. It's going to be made public as soon as this is available on April 8th. But yeah, I've been working furiously getting things going on this platform. Things have been on here for like the last month and a half. And it's an evolving process. As I get closer, I'll start filling out the projects tab and the issues tab. I'll get the discussions and the wiki page going as well. These are all built-in features of GitHub. Really awesome stuff. Again, these are things I don't have to host myself, that will load quickly and just work for the most part. This is all just ways of saving myself headache and time, right? So I can really just focus on making cool stuff, right? Programming GeoPix and making that as good of a project as I possibly can. Probably not something you've seen is the Airtable. This is kind of how I've managed my issues and bug tracking for years now. Shout out to Eric at ImagineX for tipping me off to this. It's a really great platform, but again, it's a little bit harder for this to be public facing. There's ways to like create a bug submission form, but ultimately you can't just like do a Google search and find this, right? So this will be ported over to GitHub issues. I'll probably be pruning out a lot of crap and old nonsense that doesn't need to be in here. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of issues in this database. Some of them probably aren't even relevant anymore. Some of them are. Some of them are finished. Some of them are not. And by the way, when GeoPix 2 launches, it's not going to be like 100% done, right? That's the nature of open source projects. I could wait until the next 3 years and never be done with GeoPix, right? That's the case for any project, but my goal is to get it to a good spot that's you can totally use it. It's going to have like a polished interface. Most of the bugs will be worked out. Not all the features you could possibly want, but I want to open that up to user testing and feedback, and actually get more than just a few data points on what people care about and what's important, so that I can really make good use of the time I have in terms of development and stuff like that. So Yeah, so that's going to get worked on. Let me go ahead and show you the Patreon page that we have. It's not quite it, but if you head over to patreon.com /enviraldesign, this will probably look a little bit different depending on when you hop over here. But this is, this is where you can kind of throw in a subscription if you want to help support the process of development. Not only can you do it there, but you can also do this on GitHub. If you go over to the repo when it's live, or you can just do it, I think. Can you do it from the enviraldesign? No, you have to click on a repo. So if you go to UberGUI or anything else that's public, you can, okay, yeah, so you can just go to github.com/sponsors/enviraldesign, and you can, also do the same thing. It's like a mini Patreon, right? It's actually a little bit better than Patreon in terms of what the creator gets, because GitHub matches the donations partially. So if you're able to do GitHub, definitely recommend doing that instead of Patreon, but either's fine. And obviously if you can't do either, that's fine too. It's an option, and that's the whole point of it, right? Is a voluntary way of supporting the stuff you like. So my YouTube, nothing really new there. I was just browsing through here before this video, and for those of you who have been on board since GeoPix 0.9, which is probably not too many of you, but for the few of you that have, OG supporters and users, you'll probably remember some of these videos 5-6 years ago, right? GeoPix has been an evolution, and it started off as an experiment, really, to see how many pixels I could control in Touch Designer, and then I started building a user interface around that, and one thing led to the other. 0.9 led to a complete and total rebuild, which was 1.0, and then 1.0 led to 2.0. It was never intended to be a full and total rebuild, but it's like almost like 80% of the software is rebuilt for 2. It looks similar, obviously very different color scheme, but in terms of like the outliner and the tools and the general layout of things, it's pretty much settled into a look that I think works. So 2.0 is not drastically different looking, but it is almost an entirely different beast under the hood. Way faster, way more polished. Speed and optimization, those are big things, right? In 1.0, you had like 30 fixtures. It would take you way too long to open that project. Clicking around the scene was slow. It was just slow to interact with. So a lot of structural kind of deep changes had to be made to speed that up. Anyways, yeah, so if you ever are curious about kind of where things came from and how things started, check out the YouTube page. Just keep scrolling. You can go all the way back to the beginning. And there's some pretty interesting stuff. So yeah, that's kind of the gist of where things are at there. The new website may or may not be launched on April 8th. My priority is to get the GitHub up and to get some wiki stuff and some simple video tutorials up first, and then I'll go back through and I'll transcript those, create some text tutorials, eventually get things on the website as well. But essentially that's where things are at right now. So super exciting stuff. And over here, I saved this for last, but it's just a quick teaser of something I threw together before this video. You've probably seen this arch before. This is actually a physical structure I own. And these strips and fixtures on here are just examples of some of the things to come. Right now, we have a clustered arrangement, so we actually don't have every one of these pixels lit up. It's kind of like an optimization on the clustering, but it's quite powerful. So we have a new shading algorithm in here that basically lets you have far more lighting emitters in the actual scene. I got some overlapping fixtures. Let me fix that real quick. Looks like it's not doing it automatically. Let's just go ahead set these to different channels. All right, so that's the pre-release life. Couple little bugs in case you're curious. These pixels here are picking up some stray channels, probably from the movers, but not a big deal. Essentially, in this scene here, we have a couple cool things I'm showing off. Obviously, the first one is the volumetric lighting effects that you see coming out of the custom fixtures and a little bit out of the point lights, right? The LEDs. Here we have a small crowd. These are instanced people, so there's actually only, let's see, where's that group? There's only 1, 2, 3, 4 different actual geometry objects, but each object now has kind of a cool instancing section down here. We'll get into this later, but you can basically create a brick wall, create a volumetric object. You can take a wall section and tile it. Lots of cool things you can do. And the advantage of instancing over duplicating is huge. Always instance when you can. It's just going to be much faster. Yeah, the other thing is, it's kind of hard to see because it's a dim scene, but we have PBR textures. If we go down here into the dirt, or the concrete rather, these PBR textures you can load in your own. It doesn't matter from where, Substance Designer, just the web. And we actually have kind of a cool material browser. There's only 5 here, but you can add your own textures to a folder in Windows, and that will populate this automatically. And so if you have a geometry selected, you can click on one of these and it'll load that texture up and connect it to the object that you have selected. So cool stuff there. In addition to the texturing stuff, we have some really cool changes in the IO tab. Basically now, instead of everything kind of existing on one level, you have your macro level, which is the top level, and then you can go inside of a macro and you can actually edit the contents of that macro, set it up the way you want, and you can connect the macro to various projectors. This will make more sense later, but it's basically a much more robust system. You can trigger multiple macros at once in different ways, and so once we kind of get things moving in the Perform tab, you'll be able to really trigger things in a very interesting set of ways. So look forward to that. We have all kinds of cool things: the animation editor, the sequence editor. Right, you can do. You can pull in like an audio file and do a time-coded show if you want. You can do a Previz presentation for a client. You can keyframe your camera and actually move it around the scene. You can actually drive any object in your any parameter here. Object parameter, TX, TY, TZ, rotation, camera FOV with OSC, MIDI, various things. So you can create very dynamic Previz simulations by connecting various inputs to other things in the scene. You have a preferences window now that replaces the settings page. Some of this stuff you might have seen if you've been keeping up with the updates, but I'm just going through some of the highlights for now. These custom fixtures, there's currently, this is one of the bigger features I have left to do, is a fixture editor. I've wiped the old one, but essentially, you'll be able to create your own custom DMX fixture profiles through a GUI, and it will save out a JSON, and you load that JSON into what we're calling a custom fixture object. Yeah, so a lot of exciting things coming down the pipes. We have a display manager as well. So this is our Windows display configuration. Obviously you can't see this because it's a video recording, but you can essentially drag various panes to different monitors, and you can maximize your view, and you can have multi-monitor workflows, and you can also, of course, assign your video targets, right? So if you're doing a video wall or a projector, you can send out your surface content to those as well. All right, so that's it for this video. I just wanted to give you a bit of a teaser here of what you can expect, and just tell you about where things are at right now. For the next month, I'm going to be grinding away at as many bugs and features as I can for that April 8th release. And you'll be hearing more through the Facebook channel and also through MailChimp. So if you haven't, by the way, on this website, head over here. And if you know a new visitor such as yourself comes here, you'll see that there's a subscribe thing at the bottom that will pop up for MailChimp. Just enter your email if you want. This is just going to give you updates. Obviously, there's not going to be any external marketing or anything else. This is just me sending you updates about GeoPix, right? And GeoPix related changes, features, bugs, releases, stuff like that. So highly recommend doing that. And yeah, we'll see where things go. Thanks for being on this ride, and looking forward to getting this out there to you all. Let me know what you think. Thanks.